Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kindly welcome you at today's meeting. I'm speaking to the guests who gathered today at our Warsaw premises, as well as those who joined us online. Once again, good afternoon and good morning for those who joined from America. Today's meeting is devoted to the just released PGE Group Strategy for the years of 2012-2035. The presentation will be hosted by Mr. Paweł Skowroński, Acting CEO and President of the Management Board, as well as Mr. Wojciech Ostrowski, CFO of the company. My name is Jakub Freilich, and I'm from the IR team. Before we start, one technical note. Presentation of the strategy will be firstly delivered, which will be followed by the Q&A session. All questions can be addressed either in person for those who are here with us in the room, or by email or online formula. And questions will be addressed as first come, first served basis, so please don't hold on to the last very minute. I think we are ready now, and I will hand over to our speakers. Please, Mr. Skowroński, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, first, a few words about the history. PGE has been created in 2007, almost 5 years ago, and it consisted with more than 150 big and smaller companies, and during the last years, this organization has been transformed, and today we operate in the structure which is based on 5 bigger companies: conventional generation and mining, distribution, retail, renewables, and the company which is dedicated to the nuclear project. Oh, sorry. Preparing our strategy, we have assumed that the development of the group will base on some obvious principles. First, we want to have modern and diversified generation portfolio. The second, we want our customers to think about us as the supplier of the first choice. We must focus on these issues which are important for our customers. We would like to enforce our position in generation on the domestic market. If it is possible, we would like also to act effectively abroad. Few words about that later. We want to keep and improve our financial position. And looking at the domestic market, which is probably one of the most interesting power market in Europe, we want to look for a chance basically in Poland. And if we are able to find some really interesting options abroad, we will also take the advantage of that. The EBITDA of the group for the last 2 years was on the level of 6.5 billion Polish zlotych. For the last 4 quarters, from the last quarter of the 2010 up to the third quarter of 2011, it rises well above 7 billion, so we have this significant improvement here. The biggest part, almost 2/3 of the EBITDA, is generated by the conventional generation, then on the distribution, and other segments gives, let's say, the smaller contribution to that. We are acting in Poland, a part of the trading companies which are present on the German and Czech market. The whole our activity is located here in the country. What is important for us is that we operate with relatively, in the Polish conditions, in relatively young fleet. We have more than 13 gigawatts of installed capacity. Our generation is more than 55 terawatt-hours, and it is about 36% of the total installed capacity in Poland. The average age of the power units which are in operation in PGE is about 23 years. We are not the newest, but on the, in the country, it is the youngest fleet if you compare it with the assets which are in Tauron, Enea, Energa, or others. 2/3 of our generation is based on lignite. Then, about 1/4 on hard coal. Gas and renewables have the minority position, at least up to now. Today, such a structure gives us quite the good position. The problem is the future, and this is something which we must change. CO2 emission from our assets is relatively high. We, up to 2010, got the free allowances for the CO2 emission, and the number of the free allowances will be reduced. In just next year, in 2013, we expect that almost half of the allowances for the CO2 emission will have to be bought on the market. And it will, for sure, have an impact on our EBIT. So coming to our strategy, first we should say a few words about the mission which we assume, our vision, how the group should grow, and our strategic objective. The strategic objective is obvious. We want to create economic value for our shareholders. Mission is shaped in the short expression that with the energy we want to create a value and build a safe future. To make it, we have the vision, the vision which gives a bit wider picture of our ambitions. We want to be a leader of the growth, of dynamic growth, but in the same time we want to operate with the modern and fuel-diversified generation portfolio. We want to be a company which is friendly for our customers. We want to be efficient and financially sound. We want to make use of our potential and opportunities, basically in Poland, but if it is possible, also abroad. Referring to the 4 pillars of the strategy, which is the customer, investment, operational efficiency, and human capital, if we look from the strategic objective, if we move to the key objectives, so discussing the customer and our relation with the customers, we want to increase our competitiveness, and what is really very important, we want to increase the quality of our services which we provide to the customer. It's important not only to keep the good position on the market, but also to keep the good image of the PGE. We will develop our products, we will increase the number of the customers we serve. Investments, we want to grow on the current market in Poland and in power generation, in renewables, and in cogenerations. If it is possible, we'll also try to invest on foreign markets, and we want to invest in modern technologies. We want to be the company which is most modern as it is possible in that business, and it is most efficient for that reason. Operational efficiency is to be achieved by the margin maximization, improvement of use of our existing assets, reduction of costs, improvement of the IT systems, and we want also, in better way, more efficiently, make the advantage of the vertically integrated structure. Human capital is something which is, I would say, the base for the success in all fields. We need the competent people in the company. We are determined to increase our competencies. We want the people who are task-oriented, consequent, and who are the specialists in this, what we are going to do. We want to build modern corporate culture based on the engagement of our employees. Few assumptions which has been done when we are working on our strategy. So regarding the fuel prices, in the baseline scenario, we expect that the lignite and hard coal prices will be more or less flat in real terms for the next years. Yes, most probably the price will rise as it is presented by International Energy Agency, and we accept our assumptions as a matter of fact a bit similar as the IEA predicts. CO2 price at the base scenario is thought to reach the level of 40-50 euro per ton somewhere in 2030-2035. Electricity prices depends on the balance between the supply and demand and the reserve which can exist in the system, which has an impact on the marginal cost. We expect that in Poland, due to the fact that the consumption of electricity will rise, it's a matter of question how quickly, but we assume that this growth will be more or less 1.4% yearly for the next 20 years. So we expect that there will be the space on the market for the baseload thermal power plants, as for the peak sources, as for the cogeneration, and as for the renewables, which we believe will be supported by different kinds of financial mechanisms. Our structure of the generation portfolio should be drastically changed during the next 25 years. We are continuing our nuclear program, and due to that fact, most probably, if we succeed, 1/3 of the electricity generated in the PGE Group in 2035 can be generated in nuclear power station. The share of lignite, which is today more or less 67%, will most probably be reduced to 16 plus additional 16-17 in the new lignite-fired power plants, but equipped with the CCS technology, CCS systems, if such are commercially available. We hope to increase our generation in renewables significantly, and in gas. Hard coal will be most probably reduced just to 5%. And this gives you a completely different picture of the PGE as it is today. Consequently, the CO2 emission, or intensity of the CO2 emission, we would like to reduce from more than 1 ton per megawatt hour, as it is today, to about 0.27 in 2035.
You see quite ambitious target for the EBITDA. It is the target for 2035 is almost 5 times higher than current EBITDA. We know that this is quite ambitious, but in our opinion, based on this strategy, achievable. And you see the same that we will increase our EBITDA margin from 34-35 to slightly over 50. It means that we will try to catch the leaders, because this moment the leaders had such EBITDA margin. But in reality, this is possible just based on the nuclear power plant. It means that without this, nobody can achieve such EBITDA margin. Therefore, we had in our strategy this part of production. And next slide, you can see that we would like to organically grow in the retail market, and this organic growth is from 26 to 33% of the market share. It means that we we'll need to have the quite good people in retail. From other side, to create some contacts with our clients, and in our opinion, it is possible. Additionally, the domestic generation market, we will be still below 50%, and because we expect some growth of the energy consumption in Poland every year, but we will increase it from 42 to 46%, and thanks the higher increase in the retail market share, the generation versus retail position will increase. What was mentioned by my colleague, we are interested in the foreign operation. We are interested to invest money to some onshore, offshore, or maybe other investment as well in the foreign countries, but it needs to give us the minimum such margin and slightly maybe better than on the Polish market. Therefore, we will invest eventually in some very good potential investments.
Part of the creation of the competencies of people who are working in the PGE, the base for such a development is the investment program. A big part of the project which we would like to develop is already known and defined. Of course, some of them are the project of the future, but with what we are working just now is presented on that slide, and our most important targets are following. The first 2 hard coal units in Opole, 900 megawatts each. Most probably, during the next few days, we'll sign the contract for construction of that plant. It's a good conventional project, and as I mentioned, due to the fact that the electricity consumption in Poland is rising and will rising, there is a space for such kind of the technology in the country. I should add here that taking into account our current fuel structure, we consider that if we find in future better investment opportunities, we will think also about the reduction of our involvement in coal-fired generation. It means that we are ready to discuss our reduction of generation, of the share in generation in Opole power station. The second important project is the lignite-fired unit in Turów, 460 megawatts. The bid process is running. We hope to have that unit in operation in 2018. Then, in December, we have announced a bid for 3 cogeneration plants based on the CCGT systems, fired with the natural gas in Gorzów, 120-130 megawatts, in CHP Pomorzany in Szczecin, 240 megawatts, and in Bydgoszcz, 400 megawatts. I hope that in 2 months, maybe 3 months, probably in May, we'll announce a bid for construction of the gas-fired cogeneration plant at Puławy of the capacity from 600 to 860 megawatts. And most probably also this year, the second unit in Lublin CHP plant, smaller unit, 120-130 megawatts. Apart of these conventional investments, we are focused on renewables and basically on wind farms. We keep our target to have the 1,000 megawatts installed in the wind farms in 2015. It is more and more difficult to reach, but from our point of view, it is simply a necessity if the company is to develop effectively. The second step would be the investment in the offshore. We would like to have 1,000 megawatts, more or less 1,000 megawatts installed up to the end of this decade, and the second 1,000 up to 2025. Parallel to these projects, we are developing nuclear program. We would like to participate in construction of not one but 2 nuclear power plants if the nuclear technology is implemented in Poland. So you see here the number of 600 megawatts. PGE share can be up to 4,500 megawatts. And in the very, very far future, we take into account also the opportunity to come back into the lignite, but the lignite with the CCS, based on the lignite deposits in the area of Gubin, where there is the possibility to construct the lignite mine and the power station of the capacity 1,800 to 2,700 megawatts. But this unit, this system, if it's constructed, will not be in operation earlier than in 2030. So the expected expenditures, which we think we will have to invest during the next years, are on the level 40-45 billion Polish złotych up to 2015. Next, about 40 billion Polish złotych to the end of this decade. Discussing mergers and acquisitions, we will focus on renewables. It is one of the methods to reach these targets, which were mentioned just a minute ago, and in cogeneration. And if it is necessary to support our development in cogeneration and the electricity generation based on the gas, we'll also consider acquisition of the heat distribution, maybe even gas distribution. We take into account the possibility to invest in unconventional gas mining in Poland. We plan sufficient funds to enter this market. We realize that there is a risk and reward profile is still uncertain, so we will be doing this developing this activity very carefully. From our perspective, the most attractive markets are the Poland and the surrounding countries, Germany, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Austria. We are also eager to discuss some renewable projects in Sweden and in UK. Development of the installed capacity presented on the next slides gives you some more details, because based on the projects which were listed earlier, you can see how the portfolio will develop regarding the capacity and how the structure of the portfolio will change since 2011 to 2035. It's a kind of division here.
I think that next slide is showing that we are not looking just for the investment and don't look to our financial position. That our target is to obviously never increase to be over 2.5 net debt to EBITDA. You can see that we have 2.3 as a maximum, and we will keep this 2 probably close to 2025, not earlier. Therefore, from this perspective, we would like to keep the safe, to be on the safe side from this. You see the split of not split, but the EBITDA year by the 5 years by 5 years, and I think that we obviously took into consideration the CO2 payment which we'll need to have from 2013 to 2020. Therefore, this increase is not so significant. Later on, when we will change our portfolio, it means that we'll increase the renewables, we'll increase the nuclear power generation. You see quite significant increase in our EBITDA, and you can see the split by segments, and you see that in reality in 2035 we see this 1/3 is from nuclear, and just 17% is conventional. And I think that what is important is it's not in this slide because it's quite close 2020. I understand that when we are talking about 2035, it is quite long distance before us. And in 2020, we are decreasing the conventional from 58 in 2015 in 2020 to 43, and increasing the biggest increase is in renewables from 7 to 22% of the EBITDA. This is some short information for you that we would like to keep the proper financing position for PGE, not to look for the investment just as an investment, but it needs to create the value.
And the last slide of the presentation gives you some numbers. It's to some extent the repetition of the slide 11 with the numbers regarding the structure of the fuel structure, energy structure of our vision, how the generation assets should change in PGE. Summarizing, I would like to say that this strategy, I realize that it seems to be ambitious, and some people can think that it is hard to achieve, but we believe that apart of the fact that it is difficult, it is feasible, and from the point of view of the company, it is necessary to be done. If we want to keep our position on the market, we must change. We must change our culture. We must improve our competencies. We must change our assets. We must keep the best level of the power companies in the Europe. We are working on the strategy permanently. This strategy, which is presented to some extent, is, as a matter of fact, the update of this information which were published earlier. And with this update, we would like to say that we do not stop the work on the strategy. Each year we'll check if we are on the good path. We take into account that the macroeconomic conditions are changing. The availability of the fuel can change, and all these aspects which can significantly improve the impact, which could have the significant impact of the activity of the PGE, must be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And now we'll move on to the Q&A session. If anyone from the room is ready with their questions, please raise your hand so we could distribute microphone so for those attendees online could hear us as well. We have first question.
Hello, Paweł Puchalski, BZWK. My question would be, who would be the buyer of Opole power plants, existing and new capacities?
We don't know. We don't know. We simply claim that we want to develop a project because it's simply a good project. We can earn money on that. But on the other hand, if we find real opportunity to develop more on renewables, on gas, and if it is, if we have such a situation that somebody is really interested in that, we are open for discussions and negotiations.
So maybe you should say or write in your strategy, everything is for sale if we find better opportunities in the future.
Not exactly. That sale is foreseen due to the fact that we really want to change our structure of our fuel portfolio. We will not reduce our assets based on the lignite, but we can discuss reduction of our activity based on the hard coal.
And you think someone will be interested in the most, well, most CO2 polluting fuel?
Please look at that a bit different. Of course, this is the plant which is emitting CO2, but on the other hand, the existing units in the Poland are these of them which have the highest efficiency if you compare it with other units which are in operation in Poland and fired with hard coal. The new units, these two 900 megawatts, will be also the most modern units fired with the hard coal in Poland. So these assets have a quite good position on the market and can be attractive.
Okay, another question. You mentioned that you expect real growth in electricity price by 1.5% on average. It includes CO2, it includes cost of CO2 or not?
Yes, it is.
Well, somewhere you wrote that you expect that CO2 cost will be kept at 40-50 euro per ton. So if that is your worst case scenario, I find your 2020 forecast much higher current EBITDA very strange, because average growth is really slow and your forecast is higher, and where is the cost of CO2 for 2020?
I think that you are talking about this 40-50 related to as a cap, the cap for the CCS, what was in the presentation, and this is the target for some, not for 2020. It is for the period from 2030 over.
Can you share with us your forecast for CO2 cost?
We will consider, we will look on it.
My problem is your real electricity price growth is very slow, 1.5%. It looks like it didn't include CO cost at all.
But when we take into consideration the same the inflation rate, and you add additional 1.5, it's not so small increase. We try to be more secure than very looking to the future. That is great. It means that it will increase 3, 4, or 2% every year. I think that it looks from the situation on the market that it won't be so nice, mostly after 2017-18, when we will finalize the Opole power plant and additional eventual plants which the market is talking about. That this is the period when, in our opinion, the price will slightly go down and later on go up.
Add a few words to that. We believe that the CO2 cost is already included in the price. So the price will rise if the cost of the CO2 allowances will rise, or if the coal price will rise. And the consequences in the numbers.
There are no questions at this very moment. Okay.
Tomasz Kruchowski, Deutsche Bank. Just two questions. The first one refers once again to Opole power plant and its potential disposal. Do you consider disposing this project yet when it's still in under construction phase, or you want to examine it when it's finished and already producing?
First, we do not want to sell the project. We consider the presence of other investors in the Opole. When can it happen? It depends on the market situation.
That's fair enough, thank you. And the second question refers to your EBITDA forecast for 2015. I mean, the number is 10 billion, and when I look at the split, there is 7% which is to come from new businesses. Could you say a few words what kind of new businesses it refers to?
This moment we have in plan first, as you saw in the strategy, some investment in gas, and it is some very small amount from this. And additionally, we have eventual offshore on outside of Poland.
Okay, thank you. And when it comes to one other question, when it comes to this growth in renewables, this 1,000 megawatts which needs to be added by actually in 3 years, do you have identified projects which are feasible to develop in such a relatively short period of time?
Well, the portfolio of our own project is limited, but it's still few hundred megawatts, which can be constructed in operation up to 2015. Other project we would like to buy on different stage of their development. Last year, the PGE Energetyka Odnawialna has bought 108 megawatts in the farms which will be in operation this year. A part of that we hope to invest in additional 30-40 megawatts which is not yet contracted. Most probably in 2030 we will put into operation the first 100-150 megawatts in our own, taken from our own projects developed by an EO themselves. So it is ambitious target, but as I said, is feasible.
No further question. Thank you.
Maybe now we'll move on to our attendees online. We have questions from Fred Barassi from Goldman Sachs. First question is, can you give any further breakdown of your CapEx figures, particularly for 2012-15? For example, how much is nuclear expected CapEx, and how much would be generation and mining as a whole?
I think that in what we are talking 2012-15. 12 to 15. Okay, the capex for this 4 years roughly is close to 40 billion Polish zloty, and most of this capex is for the conventional generation, and we are talking about Opole in reality, the biggest spendings, and some of the for the maintenance of the old blocks in Bełchatów, and for the renewables. When we are talking about the nuclear, I think that the spendings are between 100 to 200 million Polish zloty a year.
And one more question from Fred. Your EBITDA from distribution in 2015 is expected to be at the level of 2.5. Does this assume that the RAB is to be fully revalued by 2015, or is there any expected more growth from the RAB revaluation after 2015?
As I remember, we have the 2016 last year for this achievement, that 15 is almost done, but not fully. It's 1 year more.
Okay. We have one more question from Alberto Ponti from Societe Generale. Do you expect any support from the government for nuclear, speaking directly or indirectly in terms of any support of the prices?
When we are talking about prices, obviously not. When we are in the current situation, obviously. When we are talking about financing, that we will see the situation regarding financing, if it will be necessary to get the guarantee from state or not. But it is something what is open.
Mhm. We have also questions from newswires. First question would be, is there any update on the Energa transaction with respect to the recent news from the ministry?
We are waiting for the court meeting, for the court dispute, and the next decisions will be taken later.
Sale of non-core assets, when we expect Exatal to be sold out?
We would like to spend all our non-core assets to sell this non-core asset this year, including Exatal, if it is of course possible from the market point of view.
And one more question. What is the expected capital expenditures related to shale gas extraction?
I think that we can't say the proper figures. We have some hundreds of millions during nearest 4 years. But sorry, but we can't say the full real figure.
Okay, maybe we can go back to, is there any questions from the room? Okay, we have one more question that relates to the pricing. The assumption is of 1.5 real electricity price growth and around between 1 and 1.7 volume growth in Poland. This means about 3% revenue growth. Your EBITDA forecast implies 6.8 annual growth in EBITDA. The difference will come from most cost-effective operations, or?
Some of this is from the cost-effective operations, the rest from the more efficient production as well. We are talking about the increase of the income slightly higher than increase of costs.
And one more question from Newswires. At which stage are PGE foreign acquisitions? Has any due diligence been started yet?
Regarding the foreign acquisitions, we are just now starting the due diligence, if I remember well, of the 2 wind farms, offshore wind farms. And we are open for discussion of such projects, other projects.
And one more, going back to nuclear. Presentation states that between 15 and 20, there will be some first plants to be built. When between 20 and 25, when can we expect the first unit to be?
So just as it was presented, it will be not earlier than in 2020 and not later than in 2025.
Are there any other questions from the room? We have one more question relating to Opole power plant project. How can Opole contract be signed if there is no valid environmental permit?
The environmental permit, the first thing is that the permission for the construction is still valid, as a matter of fact. And we most probably will repeat the procedure to get the new environmental decision, or it depends on the analysis of our lawyers. We will try to find the solution appealing to the high administration court.
Okay, that would be the most burning questions that were raised. If there are no further questions from the room, we would like to kindly thank you for joining us today. Should you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to get back to the IR team directly. Thank you.